about this. You've never been at this exact moment in this exact place as this exact version of yourself before. Whoa! I'm Bronkar Lee.
And I'm Cindy Harvell. We believe that when we approach the journey of life with curiosity, joy, and a desire to grow, we can have a powerfully positive impact on the world around us.
Join us for conversations
and explorations
that will change your perspective,
shift your mindset,
and inspire you to get out there and spread the good stuff.
Spread that good stuff. Hey everyone, today we're speaking with Dave Holland. He's a world percussionist, music educator, and facilitator, essentially spreading the good stuff in the world through music. I'll give you a full introduction in just a minute, but just want to remind you that this awesome episode is brought to you by the Good Stuff Network. Spreading the good stuff is truly about using your skills and knowledge to make a positive impact in the world. And when you know how to attract the good stuff to you, it's much easier to spread it outward. Bronkar and I are doing a live, free, virtual workshop every month. It's called How to Be a Magnet for Good Stuff, and you're invited. Visit go.spreadthegoodstuff.com to learn more. Woohoo! And now, let me... Yeah, see, he's already excited. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dave. Dave Holland is a highly charged world percussionist, teaching artist, and drum circle facilitator. As founder of Beatin Path Rhythm Events, Dave spreads the message of community, teamwork, diversity, and environmental awareness through drum circles and interactive performances. Dave's world travels include Cuba, West Africa, Brazil, Italy, Spain, Australia, Japan, Russia, and Turkey. Wow. Yes. As author of 3 books on rhythm facilitation in the classroom and community settings, Dave has presented at the National Drum Circle Facilitator Conference, the International Orff Schulwerk Conference, the International Percussive Arts Conference, and numerous statewide music educator conferences across the U.S. Welcome, Dave.
Yeah.
Wow. Boy, I tell you, that sounds so impressive. Yes. Especially when read by you. Hey, friends, it's great to see you.
So, my man, we came together and I learned about you through the drum facilitation world. And a good friend, Sam Rogers, connected us. And
go Sam.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about somebody out there putting the good stuff in the world. Huh?
Yeah, good human. We'll have to have him on a future episode. I just talked to him. We were in Salt Lake City actually for an event recently. But anyway, so you have been facilitating. You have facilitated for massive audiences, tiny audiences, everything in between. You truly bring like rhythm into the hearts and the heads of everyone and bring it out of everyone. And you do amazing work. What got you into drum facilitation?
Wow. You know, where do you want to start? I mean, I think I remember leading shows and programs as a kid in my backyard and gathering all the kids around to put on presentations and build costumes and create circuses. And so it's possible, you know, we could say that I've been kind of facilitating people getting together to make something happen since I can remember in the backyard in Netford Township, New Jersey. And then, of course, our society back then tells you that you have to go and become a performer. You know, get the chops and the skills and perform. But I always felt there was something missing because people, the band is here and the audience is there, and I thought, they want to play too. And when I started playing around with getting other people to play along or clap along, something changed. The entire dynamic of the experience starts to shift, and these lines start to get blurred, and that's always excited me as a performer. And so even in the middle of a drum solo where you're supposed to be the guy, playing all the fast fills, I always loved this notion of ga 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 ga. And wait, and for a minute people go, "What are you doing?" And even the band leader's like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're supposed to be playing fast notes." I said, No, I want to do some interactive stuff. And then I sort of pursued this performance path, and then ran across, I was at the club, and somebody said, "Man, you're sort of facilitating on stage. Did you know that? And have you met Arthur Hall?" And so when I recognized, that, okay, there's somebody out there actually doing this. And by that point, Arthur was already starting to do workshops on drum circle facilitation. By that time, I had been exposed to the drum circle world, the world percussion experience, and I was starting to make that shift in my performance consciousness, playing more world percussion. And then I took off and met Arthur, took a couple of trainings and workshops. And so Arthur's kind of given credit as the godfather. I think he calls himself the midwife of the drum circle world. And so that's how that whole thing started. So I think I already had the bug. And then when I showed up at the workshop, play shop, I was doing things that were natural to me anyway. And I just found my path in swimming in those waters.
That's amazing, brother. Is there one? So it sounds like there was this desire as at the core of everything you're doing to unite people together through this language of rhythm. And you figured out how to do it by using the context of a live performance to actually not just perform for people, but to create a moment with them. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about, well, what brings you joy? What brings you purpose? What brings you meaning? And for me, it's always been connections, but connections through rhythm, because I think that's something that, I was asked recently, well, what do you want the rest of the world to know about rhythm? And it is that you got it and you can express it and you can share it with others. And so for me, the facilitation world, it does that. And, and I work with some great musicians, and I'm starting to see more and more this notion of facilitation creeping into performance. And I just love it. Some of the guys don't even know what they call it, but they know that if they can get something happening, this relationship, this communication between the dialogue between the audience and the band, that's when things start to really shift energetically. So yeah, it's big fun.
Yeah, I think people want to be a part of something, not just an observer. Like, we don't just want to watch, we want to be included. And then when we leave that experience, it's less like, whoa, those guys were so amazing, and more like, wow, I felt like I was part of something, right? And that's so powerful. And for the listeners out there, what Dave's saying here is, no matter who you are, where you are, you got it. You got the rhythm. And my man, I got a question for you. Is there such a thing, and I have a belief about this and a good bit of data back, is there such a thing as a non-musical, non-rhythmical being?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I'm gonna go on record there. What I will say that there is a being that has not identified themselves as rhythmic, someone who has not had that early rhythmic capacity developed, and so they don't have their narrative has been for so long, I can't play. And we run into them every single day in our work. I can't play. Oh, he's the musician. I'm not the musician. And you know what they say, what comes out of your mouth comes into your life. And as long as you keep saying, I can't do it. My sister, she's the musician, then of course that will become a reality. So if we've got, everything about us is rhythmic, and it's a little bit of a metaphor that's overused, quite frankly, sometimes in terms of we got the heartbeat and the heartbeat gives us the capacity, but there's truth to that. Everything in our body is vibrating. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have rhythm, and if we didn't help to or create a rhythm within our life. If your life is sort of chaotic, it's because you haven't found the flow, you haven't found the rhythm. And we are most functional human beings in our relationships, in our work, in our play life, when we find that groove, when we find that rhythm with others, schedules, whatever it happens to be. So I'm going to go on record and say that everyone has the capacity to feel, to and then to express rhythm.
Yes, I love it, brother. We share the same philosophy. Yeah.
I didn't know if we were going to go at odds on this one or not.
No, bro. We're kindred spirits here. So, and one line that you just said that I really love, and I haven't heard it framed in this particular way: what comes out of your mouth comes into your life. And that's powerful because that's the self-talk, that's the internal dialogue. And as we speak that outward, then it reflects back to us. How powerful is that line? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I remind kids all the time, the person that you talk to the most in life is yourself, and you got to be careful about what you say to yourself. And we can either drag along the good stuff, or we can drag along the bad stuff. How we remember and how we choose to frame our experiences in the past, learning from the past, but not living in it. We live in this moment, what we experience this moment, what we bring to this moment. And I think that's what I love about playing rhythm is that, first of all, the drum doesn't lie. If you put negative stuff into the drum, it's going to tell you, and you can only play one note at a time. And so I think it's a wonderful, for kids, it's fun to say, how many notes can you play at a time? Only one. Guess what? That's how many moments you can live at one time. And so, yeah, we're kind of diving deep quickly, but that's exactly it. And so I think this being consciously connected to your rhythm and how it interacts with the rhythms of others is what I find so exciting about this work, both as performing and playing, and I do a good share of that, but also in bringing these experiences to other folks, whether it's a gathering of 20 or 30, like I did last weekend to celebrate Passover, or whether I'm performing in front of an entire school virtually like I did this week. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're speaking to, connecting with one person at a time through the power of rhythm. And that's, boy, I tell you, that's what gets me up every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And I'm really curious because you perform for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. You facilitate huge workshops and experiences, small ones, everything in between. So you're outputting a lot through your performance and facilitation work. How do you take care of yourself? What fills Dave up? How do you manage your energy level, which is at a 10 every time I interact?
I don't know. I don't know how you can possibly identify with that. You're so low energy. How do you? Well, this is something that you and I can certainly share, and we have shared certainly in personal conversations. And it's a daily thing. And if we want to go back and sort of process the last couple of years, I can promise you that I didn't do as well as I could have on many occasions. But the simple answer is to stay connected in the moment and to be looking at, well, what can I do? Find peace in the moment. When it comes to the daily habits and routines, I get up and go straight down to the yoga mat every single day without fail. I connect with my family every day. I connect with, I've got a great 5-year-old German Shepherd, and he doesn't, he sees the world as just one big, dog park, and sort of see things through his eyes is every day is a lot of fun. We were out on a big walk today, and I just love to just to put myself in new environments. Hey, recently I started dabbling into the sport of sailing, and boy, that's just fantastic. And being on the water, being in nature, these things help to recharge my batteries. But then, to do the work, I was talking with some friends. We were on a wedding gig, and there are wedding bands all over the world every single weekend, performing that very, very important role of bringing celebration to that once in a lifetime experience. And it's like, wow, look at what we get to do for a living. And I happen to be around some great folks that always have great positive mental attitudes. And if you're doing something you really love, right, you'll never work a day in your life. And so there's a lot of work to it, and I don't have to remind you of that. There's a lot of logistics, and anytime I'm setting up a virtual, there's a lot of nerves because some of it's real hocus pocus still to me. Like, wow, that really happened. That's cool. But I think just being connected to that and seeing, even on a screen, seeing kids jump or seeing kids play on their desk, that just brings me such joy and meaning, and that's what gets me going to bed with a smile on my face. And by the way, I should certainly acknowledge that charging the batteries has to do with great networks and great connections. And there you are sitting next to one of your biggest influences and positivity goddesses. And I've got one in my life. If it weren't for Jennifer, I don't know how I would have made it through the last couple of years, but I've got great mentors. I've got great friends. I've got just a great network. And when things get, a little low in energy, I can always give them a call. But I love to see the possibility. And so all of those things come together into a great big bucket of battery recharge for me every day. And that's not to say that every day is not roses, but those are the things that I always go back to and try to fill my cup up with.
So it sounds like the work itself energizes you in a sense, and then in addition to that, which is amazing, like you mentioned, if you're in that passion on purpose. And that is your work. You never work a day in your life. But it also sounds like, you mentioned yoga, family, your dog, the world is a dog park. I love that. Your lifelong learning and approach with sailing, nature, water, rejuvenation time. There's a lot inside of that and a really nice balance with all those different kind of realms there of like flexibility and physical well-being and who you're surrounding yourself with and the types of people you're around and animals, and they reflect that energy back and they project that energy to you and you reflect it back. And so it sounds like it's a really nice balance of all of those elements and making sure that there is a deliberateness and a consistency to those. Do you have anything to jump in on? I feel like I haven't held space for you because I'm so excited.
Like you guys could just talk and talk and talk for hours.
We ain't got nothing to talk about. What are you talking?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you, Dave, about your upcoming kids book that you have, because I have a personal fondness in my heart for kids' books, illustrations, stories, and I just want to hear a little bit from you about this book.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful segue, actually. It's not as big of a diversion as you may think. One of the people in my life that provides a lot of inspiration is my just amazing daughter, Sage. I call her Adalina. When we went to Italy, Sage is a hard name for an Italian. When we took our first trip to Italy, and I sat her down on the front step and I said, Sage is going to be difficult for an Italian because if they translate it, you're going to be, salvia, which is a little weird. And of course, calling people plants and herbs is a little strange. If they pronounce it the way it's spelled, they're going to say you're going to be called Sage. And she said, well, I don't want to be called Sage. And I said, well, what if we take your first name, Adeline, and make it Italian, Adalina? And her eyes lit up. She said, you mean I could be Princess Adalina? So she is my princess. And she was the inspiration for this kid's book. As when you're taking a kid to school and you're letting them off in the world, I don't know how you are as a parent, but I'm always trying to put good stuff into their heads and process things and say, what happened yesterday? What do we do something different today? And so all these little lessons and little tidbits, right? And so I had this idea of including these into a book. And my daughter's favorite animal happens to be a llama. But I wanted this llama to be different. So the book is called The Llama Who Rocks in Her Polka Dot Socks. And every day, Lulu, the llama, she takes off into the world. And she takes good vibes and good energy and good positive actions, words into every aspect of her life. And she wears a different color polka dot sock every day of the week. So I don't remember exactly which day she wears which, but let's say she wears red when she rocks it at the school, and on Tuesday green when she rocks it at the gym, and so you get the message. So every day she's volunteering, she's coming home and helping mom with dinner. Each day she wears a different color and she rocks a different aspect of her world. And then on Saturday, she puts on a multicolor pair and she hosts a drum circle. So Lulu is a drum circle facilitator. She invites all her drums into the backyard and they have a big jam. And so there's this wonderful, sort of introduction of social emotional learning and things that, that you really want to to instill in your kids, but then you also want to make sure that they have fun, right? And sometimes my daughter would say, okay, Daddy, I've heard that lesson once. And so on Saturday, Lulu has fun and she brings her friends around. And so it's also a bit of a music education book because Lulu, of course, her drum circle has blocks and bells and shakers and drums, all of the timbres that we use in a community drum circle that I employ, and then they have a dance party, and then of course they all break out in song. So it's a great big celebration. And then of course on Sunday, can you guess? Lulu goes barefoot, and that's when Lulu takes a break, right? And Lulu hits the lake with her hammock, and that's when she reads, she reflects, she ponders, she dreams, and then as we all should do on Sunday in a hammock in nature, Lulu takes a nap. She takes a nap, and so it's sort of full circle in terms of really getting out there on Monday, really making it happen. But make sure you take time to celebrate, and make sure you take time to create community with your friends. But then also Sunday or Saturday, sometime is just. And then recharge those batteries. And so that's what Lulu does. But then Lulu offers an invitation to the reader. Now that you've seen how Lulu rocks, how do you rock in your polka dot socks?
So you're bringing
there's the sort of the wrap. I hope I didn't spoil it for folks who are looking to.
No, it's good. I love it. And so it sounds like you're bringing it back to your core message. I mean, of the drum facilitation. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, literally facilitating in the yard, and then, but then it's now creating that experience through a different medium. You do it through drum facilitation, and here you're doing it through lyrics, words, and pictures in a book. And it's kind of the same thing, just a different medium, which is what I love.
And also I see a merchandise line of socks coming out next.
Oh, don't think we haven't done that brainstorm. Oh yeah. But schools seem to be very excited about it. And I don't know if I've shared this story anywhere else, but it's really, really important that if you've got a dream, you've got a vision, that you don't let hurdles or obstacles. When I came out with this book, I did read it to several media specialists, librarians, because I do a lot of work in libraries over the summer. And so I asked some friends in the library world if they'd listen to it. And I don't know why I didn't just accept their positive vibes, but I guess I felt I needed a real professional opinion. So I sent it to New York to a literary guide and paid a lot of money. And she absolutely hated it. I mean, talk about the llama market is saturated and the rhythm scheme doesn't work. And what does this word facilitate? You can't use that in a book because kids won't understand it. And I mean, she just tore it apart. So literally I put it on the shelf and thought, well, I guess I'm not going to be a children's book author. And then I was in a school doing a residency. And it was actually for Young Authors Week because I do a storytelling program using some folk tales and some of my own adaptations. And it was the media specialist and the librarian who said, Dave, you're so good with kids and you've got great stories. Have you ever thought about writing a kid's book? And I said, it's funny you should mention that. And so I shared with them the story, and they said, would you like a second opinion? And no sentence has ever been a greater catalyst than, would you like a second opinion? And so I think that anyone out there that's running into roadblocks, I go find a second opinion because, or if you have doubts or if you have misgivings, always get a second opinion, because that's what I did. And these two, was a literary consultant with lots of experience in the business aspect, and then sort of sharing these books. Actually 3 or 4 of them, but I read 2 of them, and the Lulu Llama Who Rocks in Her Polka Dot Socks was one of them. And by the time I finished reading it, they had tears in their eyes because they saw the potential, not from a marketing strategy, not from a business strategy, but through the eyes of a kindergartner, through the eyes of a first grader, through the eyes of a music teacher that wants to provide not only education, but inspiration to young readers.
Yeah.
And so that sort of recharged my batteries again, and I got back into getting it in front of kids. I took all of the challenges and I tested them, and they all tested every one of them. But I needed to have that extra nudge from people really on the ground. And so that's the story. Always get a second opinion. And so now I'm so excited about it, and we're moving through the final stages. I've been seeing some color renderings. Everything's all scripted out, mapped out. We've got the layout. We're hoping that it'll be ready for a early fall launch, and getting it into not only into schools through the like you said, the book, but doing programs around the book and giving them the experience of playing in the drum circle, like they're reading the experience that Lulu is providing for her community, and empowering them to host their own drum circles.
Well, I love that story so much. And, for all the listeners out there, it's always get a second opinion. That's a really great line. And another thing that I identified there with, overcoming these roadblocks, or adversities and whatnot, is really the fact that, I think so often in life, and certainly in music, and I know you've experienced this as well as a facilitator, so many people give their power away to an authoritative figure, like a high-level editor or a, some high-level professor or something like this. And at the end of the day, people are just people. And so I've talked to so many people in the musical realm that are like, oh yeah, I had a teacher when I took singing lessons when I was a kid, and they told me I couldn't sing. And then they are like destroyed for life, and they never go back to it. It's like, whoa, we got to undo that, because you're giving all of your ownership of your voice and your power away to this person. And you have no idea what kind of day that person's having or what kind of life that person has, backstage. It's just like, but we tend to give our power away so often to other people. And this story is so cool, because here you had given your power away to this person.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly this person's opinion ruled you. And then you're like, wait a second. But I've got all these other people who are like, this is epic, bro. Like, you got to do this. The kids need this. We need this,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there are some things I have actually had the audience, had the pleasure of sharing it with some literary consultants, coaches, folks that are actually in the nuts and bolts of early literacy development. And I knew that there were some obvious ones, there's days of the week and colors and things like that, and some alliteration and whatnot. But we read it, and they were very, very quiet. And I thought, oh, no, that's never good. But then they said, could you read it again? And do you mind if we stop you? And like every other sentence, they stop and say, did you know that there's a sample of that, an example of this? And this is what we teach in first grade. And this is what we teach in early. And they had so much fun sort of uncovering even the goodies that I didn't see from the eyes of a literacy coach. And so it seems to be resonating with folks in that world, but also in the music education world, also in the character ed world. So I think it's clobbering a lot of things. But you said, I mean, that's kind of where I live, and I know that you and I are both big believers in this Simon Sinek concept of starting with the why. What's your intention? What's your purpose? And every single drum circle event or every single interactive performance has an intention. If we can get folks into that and experience it. So this book is just a reflection of everything that I believe. They say nuts don't fall far from the tree, and as my daughter often reminds me, there are lots of nuts in my family.
I love it. What is the why here, brother? I'm curious. Like, what is it about? Like, really, like why is community drumming so important to you and to the world?
Landing on the same place at the same time without regard to the things that we see that separate us. if we can create the connection beyond the obvious things that divide us. Did you show up in the drum circle in a Mercedes or in a 1973 VW Bug? The drum circle doesn't care. Did you attend, a really, really prestigious university, or did you graduate from a tech school? The drum circle doesn't care, and the rhythm doesn't care. What the rhythm cares is, are you showing up with something to provide and to contribute? And everyone's got something to contribute, regardless of the things that we see on the outside. The drum doesn't care whether I'm white or black or rich or famous, or the drum doesn't care, and the experience doesn't care. And so I think what really excites me about that is that we all show up, and we show up with all of our mess ups and all of our problems, but we leave those behind. We walk into the drum circle and we have one common purpose, and that's to make something really cool happen. And the fun thing about a drum circle experience, and to an extent, an interactive rhythm performance has the same unknown, is you never know what it's going to sound like. You never know what it's going to feel like. But I've seen the transformational power of interactive rhythm making, drumming, so many times that I'm convinced that if we can just get folks to be there, right? And don't worry about what you got. Don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about, but be in the moment. And I think that for me is the good stuff.
That is, brother. That is, and that is not humans doing, it is humans being, and it is being in that present moment and really receiving the gift of the present.
Yep.
Right. Giving the gift of the present, receiving the gift of the present. And it's just present time right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I know that you and I are big believers in conscious connection, and this is what music does, right? Like I say, you can only be in that one moment, and music puts you in the moment, and it's the only place you really should be. Unfortunately, in our minds, we often spend our lives in the past or in the future. But I think music does this, stepping does this, walking gets us right into the moment, and so it's a huge message for kids, but also for the kid in all of us, regardless of whether we're 8 or 98.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And now tell me a little bit more here, because we've talked about how you do live facilitation for kids, for adults as well. I know you connect with 8 to 98, as you said, and the power of being in that present moment. We talked about your why and how it unites people, brings them together right here, right now. It doesn't judge. It doesn't care. Rhythm doesn't care about all that stuff, your ethnicity or your class or any of that. You also talked about, using this medium of, writing a book and having illustrations and words through that, and the power of that. I'm really curious here to kind of see, like, you also get in the recording studio and you have albums and music as well. And can you tell us a little bit about those albums, why you've created that music, and also then where people can connect with that?
Sure. I haven't really recorded anything certainly not in the kids' world in several years. But I again, in the spirit of sharing some ideas and sharing some good messages, and a lot of the songs in those early kids albums are inspired through my relationship with my daughter. Yeah. Sage has just provided so much great material, and I just love being a daddy. And I know that you and Cindy, you both really enjoy this experience of being a parent. And I think that's a wonderful gift to bring to the world, to send somebody else out in the world. And boy, I tell you what, I don't take all the credit for sure, but it's great to see her now at 20 years. It's been 20 years, and she's actually, it's her fault for me getting into this whole world. I blame her every day. No, when I had Sage, I was in the corporate world. And of course, boy, talk about full circle. I was in the television news business, and I wish I had paid attention to more of what the engineers were telling me back then, because it really would have paid off huge dividends in the last couple of years. But I was in a corporate setting, working an awful lot, and being away from my home and my family and my daughter an awful lot. So Sage is the experience of parenting Sage, bringing her up, and then sort of this whole world. So I had these ideas of these songs, and of course I love to play, and I love the idea of there being music with nothing but drums and percussion and vocals, of course. And so the drum and songs and jam-alongs came about, and that's how that whole album came about. And it's just me and singing all the tracks. I originally was going to have somebody else sing all the tracks, and the producer said, "No, it's your album. You should sing it." So we did that, and it's out there. Folks can find it on Spotify and I think iTunes and other places. If you still have a CD player, you can actually buy the CDs. All of my family educational resources are available at interactiverhythm.com. So I think you may have mentioned Beatin Path Rhythm Events. That's what started this whole thing about 20 years ago. I think I was starting to tell you that, when Sage was born, I sort of launched off and started this company and this career. So it's been right at 20 years since I've been doing resources, programs, and workshops for kids. And then, of course, as you start to shake the tree, I worked on a pecan orchard, and you can get nuts by shaking a branch, but you get a lot more nuts by shaking the trunk. Yeah. And so we didn't have the big trunk shakers, but the guys down the street did. So I was picking them old fashioned way, just one nut at a time. And so I love this notion of getting lower and shaking more of the tree, so that the kids and the teachers and then the community. So I started out with the one world that I knew, which was working with kids in schools. And then I branched into providing resources for teachers, because teachers will say, "Well, how did you do that? I'd like to do it in my classroom." Mm-hmm. And so the kids CDs were for the kids. By the way, talk about a daring proposition. I said I was trying to do music with all drums and percussion. The second album is Drum-A-Bye Baby, which is all lullabies with drums and percussion, and so that's out there as well. But so the music for kids, and then the resources that you mentioned in the introduction for music educators, and they've been used by camp counselors and drum circle facilitators. All over the world, people are finding these resources and adapting these games, and then of course programs for communities. Yeah.
And so many people, I think many of us can assume or tend to assume that rhythm is and drumming and things like that is a very stimulating thing, but it can also be used for relaxation, because it becomes that metronome, that tempo, and when we can slow the rhythm down, we as humans assimilate to that tempo, and it can actually slow us down. And I'd love to hear some more from you about this. I know really quickly an interjection of one thing that Nico and I, my second son, do together is he's Nico, the little red dragon, and he's very spirited. We call him the dragon. And pretty much every night when I put him to bed, we do what we call vibrating skulls, where we do hums together, and we just hum. And we literally just put our heads together and we just hum. And we start to hum. And he's a very spirited dude, as am I. And when we come together in that present moment with the hum, it slows us down and we get in sync and in rhythm together. And that is such a powerful nighttime routine that doesn't require any gear, any instruments, any fancy equipment, any external anything. It's just two beings coming together and humming. And I'd love to hear a little bit more from your perspective, just philosophically, or any experiences you have around the power of that slow rhythm to really relax as well.
and maybe it's just a maturity thing, but I think eventually we start to pursue the things that we need the most.
Yes.
Right. And so for me, for so many years, drumming was doom, and then, and I felt an internal need for something that I couldn't identify. And eventually, of course, you find the folks that will give you, if you're open to it. And so Reinhard Fleischler with Takatina, Glenn Velez with the drum work. Because when I saw Glenn Velez playing, I saw fiery fingers. But then in workshops, a lot of the exercises are very slow, very breath work oriented. He incorporates a lot of konakol or sorkatu, rhythm that's vocalizations from the South Indian culture. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's what I've been missing, is the other aspect, the slow tempi, the drums that resonate longer, right? And so when I started playing Bauran, if you can do fiery finger stuff, but you can also just let it breathe and just really be mindful. And I was in a wonderful lesson once with Jamie Haddad, and Jamie is wonderful percussionist, perhaps most recently known for his work with Paul Simon. And we were in a lesson, and Jamie said, "Stop! You're playing great, but dude, check out the ballet of your fingers away from the drum." Mm-hmm. And slow that down. And what does that look like? And be consciously connected to what your hands are doing out here in space. And I thought, oh man, that just made me realize that all the things we do here to prepare for that, that cruces, the anacrusis in music, all that stuff that we do over here, that's what has an impact on what happens here. And so the preparation that we do during the day or before the meeting, or taking that time for ourselves, or doing a walk before a big presentation, those are the things that matter. And so slowing things down helped to fill the void of what I needed in my own playing and my own rhythmic life. And so I do very similar at night. I often play something nice and slow, nice and low, do a little humming, and that's been really really helpful. And then you may be ready to help me with the segue, but as anything, I think as artists, when we find something that works for us, what do we want to do? As facilitators, we want to share it with other people. And so I've been working in this world of rhythm and relaxation over the last couple of years, and starting to have created a program and a YouTube channel. You might need to put in a few words: rhythm, relax, Dave Holland. I don't know, to find it. But it's something that I developed over the last couple of years, and the live programs that I've done have just been fantastic. And so it's taking the sound bath experience, we call it a sound bath with a beat, and taking the sound bath experience that a lot of folks recognize, and then supporting that sonic experience with slow, relaxing, repetitive rhythms, and allowing that to become a source of rhythmic meditation, if you will.
I love that. So much.
Big fun.
And before,
come to Atlanta, let's do a rhythm relax session together. Fun. Yeah. I got toys.
And before I forget, what I really love there is a great reminder to all the listeners out there, whether you believe you're a musician or a drummer or not, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. For everyday people to remember what you're doing in between the beats. What are you doing when you're not facilitating a meeting or on the call or doing the task? What are you doing in between those notes that you're playing, those beats that you're making? Because that absence of doing is equally as important as the doing itself. And to remember to consciously have those key ingredients in your recipe of life, so that you're rejuvenating yourself, you're taking time to recalibrate, re-energize, because that affects largely the way that you show up and make that music in life, in whatever medium you work in. So Dave, I Okay.
Amen, brother. Surely I got a tambourine here somewhere. Yeah, yay, yay, wisdom. And I just got to say, listening to you, Doc. I mean, a friend of mine says I'm the choir. You're the choir, and I'm just preaching. But your words are so true, and I think that folks need us, and they need this more than ever before. And I just hear from friends that are hurting, and from family. I see families that are suffering, and I just want to give them a big old rhythm hug and just say, let's go drum together, and let's recognize these spaces. If you start cramming so much into a groove, it just gets messy and it just gets noisy. Yeah. And you gotta have that space in rhythm. You gotta have that space in music. One of the things that was said, about Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk, some of the great jazz players, is they often said more in one note, perfectly placed, than some musicians said with all the notes that they ever played. And I think that that's really important. Find that one note. Find the space and put it right where it belongs.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, brother, I could definitely, and Cindy's just chilling over here. She's like, yeah, you guys just go.
I'm in between the beats right now. Literally in between the beats.
I feel like she needs a martini. Right?
Yeah. I could literally talk to you for days, and I have so many more questions that I want to ask you. But for the sake of timing, because we want to keep these light and tight to where people can consume it in a single swoop or session, we're going to ask you one more question here to wrap things up. But definitely much more to come, much more to unpack here, much more to collaborate on, and just it's such a delight to vibe with you.
There can be a part two.
There can be a part two at some point. That's actually not a bad idea at all. So. But the last question that I want to ask you is, first, before I ask this question, tell us again where we can find you as listeners here. Where can we find you?
Yeah. If you search Dave Holland, Rhythm Facilitation, World Percussion on the social media platforms, you should find me. There are some other Dave Hollands that are floating around that are doing great work. But if you search Dave Holland and my company, Beatin Path, Beatin Path, Beatin Path Rhythm Events, that's where you'll find my community work. Interactiverhythm.com is where most of my resources live. If you're a music educator or rhythm facilitator, you'll find those resources on interactiverhythm.com. And if you're curious about bringing rhythm making into your corporate setting or team fun team building experience, then Team Rhythm Programs. So I've got a few different hats all under that big umbrella. And the book, The Llama Who Rocks in Her Polka Dot Socks, will be available on interactiverhythm.com as well as other places where you find your media. So track me down. I'm in the Atlanta area, so you can find, if you go to the websites or the Facebook pages on Beatin Path or Interactive Rhythm, usually I'm trying to let folks know about some happenings that are going on in at least this area.
Yeah. And
there was another question there, but I went ahead and answered the last one first.
Yeah. And there is one more question, but for everybody listening, just, as you're feeling the inspiration here with Dave, he has made a really phenomenal living doing what he loves to do and getting filled by that. Regardless of how much output he's giving to people and to the world and making it a better place and spreading the good stuff, he's also receiving in that moment simultaneously. And I hope that everybody is inspired today to, follow that thing, to get that second opinion, to, push through or to work around or to expand into, surrender with, whatever that is, but to really prevail and follow your passion, because here is a living, breathing human who does that every day and brings out the best in others while spreading that good stuff. So Dave, the last question is, what is the legacy you want to leave behind on this planet? What is the legacy you want to leave behind on this planet?
Boy, I tell you what, if anyone knows how to bring things full circle, It is Broncarly. Because I can't help but feel that the answer to the last question is pretty much the answer to the first question. The legacy is to having left connections through interactive rhythm making, through little gems, little words of inspiration to the kids that need it the most. And I use the word kid as our inner child as well, and to inspire others to continue to share their true essence, who they really are. And I tell you, you hit on it. We have just begun to tap into our artistic expression potential. The woman that taught me this was my mother. She was a server her entire life. She, in terms of service oriented, she was a nurse. She was a teacher. She was later in life a pastor, always in service, but always tapping into her capacity for artistic expression. She played piano. She sung sang in choirs, and then I remember her sitting down every single October and hand painting every single Christmas card. And so, if I can provide any inspiration to anyone, is that to be creative. You are creative, and you have the capacity to share that with others, to fill your life with the creative beauty, joy, and yes, sometimes when we pick up an instrument, we don't play what we think we're going to play. And sometimes when I'm sitting in with a band, sometimes it gets a little messy. But to be hopeful and believe that the only way that musicians become really great is through making an awful lot of mistakes. The only way that you get to the good stuff is to walk through some mud, and you're gonna do it. And if there's anything that I can leave behind, it's that message that you have way more inside of you than you think you do. So stop thinking, start playing, start drumming, start exploring, start creating, start connecting, and get out there and do it. It will change your life. It will change your frequency. It'll change the vibration of your experience, your family dynamic, your workplace, your dynamic, your community. And eventually, how do we change the world? One beautiful interaction at a time, filled with conscious connection, filled with joy, rhythm, sharing, and let's get out there and hey, do it together.
Oh, Dave Holland, ladies and gentlemen, mic drop, bam!
Oh, why do a mic drop when you can do a drum roll?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And I just got to say, my mom was a pastor. She always thought that I should have been a preacher. And I said, Mom, I'm out there preaching. I promise you. Maybe not the gospel that she preached, but I believe that there are some universal truths that we all can tap into. And we're just beginning to scratch the surface. The world needs it. And I just want to close by honoring the work that the two of you are doing and letting folks know to find out more about you. If you just sort of landed on this thing, find out more about these two incredible humans. And I honor you with all of the great energy and good stuff that you're putting out in the world. Here's to more of it in the future.
Yes, here's to more good stuff. Spreading.
Come on, with it.
Yeah. All right, folks, make sure to check out Dave Holland. And yeah.
Way to sum it up.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Spread the Good Stuff podcast.
If you like what you're hearing, then join our community at spreadthegoodstuff.com/community.
In addition to this podcast, the Good Stuff Network puts on group programs, live events, and retreats, all infused with music, meditations, laughter, and real authentic connections with amazing human beings.
If you got some value today, do us a favor and spread the good stuff by sharing this podcast with your friends and family.
Spread that good stuff.